Most people spend their whole lives searching for love in others, thinking it will make them happy. But here's a shocking fact: studies show that people with low self-love are 40% more likely to experience depression and anxiety. In fact, research from the National Institutes of Health found that low self-esteem can even affect your physical health, leading to higher stress levels and weaker immune systems. So, what does this mean? If you don't love yourself, you're not just hurting your mind, you're hurting your body, too. But here's the good news: learning to love yourself isn't just possible, it's life-changing. It's the foundation for everything else. Once you start practicing self-love, you'll not only feel more confident and happier, but you'll also attract healthier relationships and better opportunities. In this journey, I'll share the surprising things I learned about self-love. You'll discover simple strategies that anyone can use to boost their self-worth and live a life full of happiness. From powerful boundary-setting techniques to small, everyday acts that will transform your mindset, this isn't just about feeling better for a day. It's about building a lasting, fulfilling love for yourself. Stay with me, because what's coming next might just change the way you see yourself forever. Let's dive in. Chapter 1: The Mirror Effect. Seeing myself for who I truly am. For many of us, looking in the mirror isn't just about how we look on the outside. It's also about what we feel on the inside. The first step to learning to love yourself is understanding who you really are, beyond the external image. It starts with facing the reflection honestly. What do you see? The person staring back at you might be someone who's struggled with insecurities, but also someone with immense potential. When I first started this journey, I realized that I wasn't truly looking at myself. I was seeing the version I thought others wanted me to be. I learned that the real me wasn't about the clothes I wore, the weight I carried, or the way my hair looked. It was about what I felt inside. One powerful strategy I used was the daily mirror exercise. Each morning, I would take a moment to look myself in the eye and say, I am worthy of love. It might sound simple, but research has shown that positive affirmations can rewire your brain to boost self-esteem. In fact, studies from the University of California show that self-affirmations can increase resilience and make you feel more competent. I also began journaling about my feelings as I gazed at my reflection. Writing helped me express the self-doubt and fears that would usually stay hidden. It became a safe space to confront and heal my emotions. But what's even more interesting is that studies suggest that expressive writing reduces stress and can improve emotional regulation. The act of acknowledging your true feelings creates a path toward self-compassion. Chapter 2: Breaking Free from the Chains of Perfection. I used to think that in order to be loved, I had to be perfect. I spent years chasing an unattainable standard of flawlessness, always trying to be the ideal version of myself that others would accept. But I've learned that perfectionism doesn't bring happiness, it only brings frustration and self-criticism. According to psychologist Dr. Brené Brown, perfectionism is a shield we use to protect ourselves from the pain of judgment. So, I started challenging this belief. The first step? Embracing my imperfections. It was hard, at first. I used to judge every little mistake I made, but now I see those imperfections as the beautiful parts of who I am. No one is perfect, and that's what makes us unique. One strategy that helped was setting realistic goals for myself. Instead of aiming for perfection, I aimed for progress. I celebrated small wins, like choosing to take care of my mental health rather than overwork myself. Psychologists have found that focusing on progress, rather than perfection, promotes greater happiness and well-being. Another powerful tool I used was mindfulness. Mindfulness helps you focus on the present moment and accept things as they are. When you are mindful, you stop worrying about the future or regretting the past. Instead, you learn to appreciate the present version of yourself. And, over time, you start to love the person you are, imperfections and all. Chapter 3: Rewriting my love story. From self-doubt to self-confidence. For years, I carried around a negative narrative about myself. I believed I wasn't good enough. I believed that love and happiness were only for people who had it all together. But I realized that those stories were just that, stories. They weren't true. I began to rewrite my narrative, replacing self-doubt with self-belief. This is the point where real transformation begins. A crucial part of this journey was changing the way I spoke to myself. Every time a negative thought popped into my head, I replaced it with something positive. Instead of thinking I'm not good enough, I would tell myself, I am learning, I am growing, and I am worthy. It sounds simple, but cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, research shows that changing your inner dialogue is one of the most effective ways to improve self-esteem and confidence. Another powerful strategy was confronting past hurts. We all have painful experiences that shape who we are, but I realized that I didn't have to let them control my present or future. I began to heal from past relationships and situations by forgiving myself and others. Forgiveness is a powerful act of self-love. According to Dr. Frederick Luskin, a leading expert on forgiveness, letting go of resentment actually reduces stress and enhances overall happiness. Finally, I started surrounding myself with people who supported my journey. The people you spend time with influence how you feel about yourself. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that we tend to mimic the behavior of those around us. So, I made sure to surround myself with people who uplifted me, not those who made me feel small. If you enjoyed this chapter, don't forget to subscribe for more strategies on self-love and happiness. Chapter 4: The Power of Saying No, Establishing Boundaries for True Self-Love. One of the most powerful lessons I've learned on my journey to self-love is the importance of saying no. For years, I was afraid to say no to others. I feared disappointing people or losing their approval. But what I learned is that saying no is an act of self-respect. It's setting boundaries that protect your time, energy, and emotional well-being. Psychologist Dr. Henry Cloud, in his book Boundaries, explains that boundaries are like the fences around a property. They protect you and help you decide what's allowed in your life. When I started saying no to things that drained me, whether it was overcommitting to social events or agreeing to things I wasn't comfortable with, I began to feel a sense of relief. Saying no doesn't make you a bad person. It simply means you are prioritizing yourself. Research from the University of California shows that people who set healthy boundaries experience lower levels of stress and higher levels of happiness. By protecting my space, I made room for the things that truly mattered to me. Learning to say no also taught me to honor my time and my needs, which is the foundation of self-love. One simple strategy I used was the pause technique. When asked to take on a new task or attend an event, I'd pause for a moment to assess whether it was something I genuinely wanted to do. If I wasn't sure, I'd politely decline. This small act of pausing allowed me to listen to my intuition and make choices that were aligned with my values. Saying no also helped me build more authentic relationships. The more I said no to things that didn't serve me, the more I said yes to what truly aligned with my life. And when you focus on your needs, you attract people who respect and appreciate you for who you truly are. Chapter 5: Nourishing My Soul, the small acts of love that changed everything. I used to believe that self-love had to be grand, that it was all about big life changes or dramatic moments. But what I've learned is that small, everyday acts of self-care and kindness can have the biggest impact. It's the little things that make a big difference in how you feel about yourself. One of the first things I started doing was prioritizing my mental health. I made it a daily habit to practice mindfulness and gratitude. Research shows that regular gratitude practice can increase happiness and reduce stress. A study from the University of California found that people who practice gratitude regularly experience improved sleep, better health, and more positive emotions. I also focused on self-care routines that nurtured my body. I began to treat exercise as a form of self-love rather than a chore. When I moved my body, whether through yoga or a walk in nature, I felt more grounded and connected to myself. Studies have shown that physical activity boosts the production of endorphins, the body's natural mood elevators. Another small act of love that transformed my life was journaling. Every morning, I'd write down my thoughts, feelings, and goals for the day. It helped me clear my mind and set intentions. Studies in psychology show that journaling reduces stress and enhances emotional clarity. I also learned to nourish my body with healthy foods that gave me energy and vitality. It wasn't about dieting or trying to look a certain way, it was about feeding my body with love. Research from the National Institutes of Health suggests that a balanced diet can improve both physical and mental health, making you feel more connected to yourself. Ultimately, these small acts of love have added up to create a profound sense of self-compassion. It's the little things that nurture your soul, and the more you care for yourself in these ways, the more you begin to recognize your inherent worth. Chapter 6: The Ultimate Love Affair. Falling in love with the person I was always meant to be. The final chapter of my journey was about recognizing that the greatest love affair in my life isn't with anyone else, it's with myself. For years, I looked for happiness and validation outside of myself, but the truth is, love begins within. Once I learned to love myself, I realized that everything else started to fall into place. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that love and happiness come from relationships, achievements, or external validation. But what I've learned is that true happiness comes from within. Dr. Kristen Neff, a self-compassion researcher, says, self-compassion is not about being self-centered, but rather about giving yourself the love and care you need. I learned that loving myself wasn't about selfishness, but about being kind and gentle with myself, just as I would with a close friend. One strategy that helped me fall in love with myself was self-compassion meditation. I began practicing a technique called loving-kindness meditation, where I would silently wish myself well-being, peace, and happiness. Studies have shown that self-compassion meditation increases feelings of self-worth and reduces feelings of anxiety and depression. Another important part of falling in love with myself was forgiving myself for past mistakes. I stopped holding on to guilt and shame, understanding that these emotions only held me back from embracing my true self. Research in positive psychology shows that self-forgiveness is a key component of overall happiness and mental well-being. I also shifted my perspective on success and failure. I stopped defining myself by my achievements or setbacks. Instead, I started to see myself as a whole person, worthy of love regardless of my circumstances. Studies show that self-worth is more stable and fulfilling when it's not based on external outcomes. The most powerful realization I had was that I was enough, just as I am. I didn't need to change or fix myself to be deserving of love. Once I accepted this, I began to attract healthier relationships, and my life became more joyful and fulfilling. The truth is, when you fall in love with yourself, you open the door to a deeper, more authentic connection with others. If you found this journey inspiring, don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for more tips on building a better, happier life with self-love.